Good morning. We are live on the Falcons Podcast on YouTube. We're going to bring in our Facebook groups as well. That's Atlanta Falcons fans on all Falcons and Scott Kennedy Sports. We'll get those going. And we will have a wonderful Monday morning podcast. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. It is a lovely Monday morning, spring Monday in the South here in Atlanta. I'm Scott Kennedy. I'm in North Metro Atlanta. This guy over here, he's in the great Northwest in Seattle. So we're kind of coast to coast with your football talk this morning. Nick, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing okay. Had a productive weekend, so that was good. It's my last few days here before I go on parental bonding leave for a bit, and a little frustrating morning. I thought baby woke me up a little early, so I'm okay. We'll get the ball rolling, get you your bottle, and that way we can get you back to bed, so there's no worries. And he finished the bottle, and for about half an hour, just totally wide-eyed, awake, not upset. But just there, I'm like, I come just roaring downstairs. I'm like, I can't do. I gotta go. We're live. We're live at 5:30. So good morning. Already been up for an hour and having my first sip of Lion coffee right now. So day's getting better. Hopefully he's asleep in the bassinet. I don't know. He's a weird one today.
I think we need to get him and my cat Ninja together because he wakes me up at 5:30 too because it's time to eat, and he's relentless.
Yep.
So if we get them to entertain each other for an hour or so, we might kill two birds with one stone. So we'll figure it out. Listen, it's we got a show for you today. We're going to talk about several things. Bleacher Report put a buy or sell on the Falcons' playoff hopes. We'll talk about that and what they said and what we possibly think. It's been a little bit since they've gone to the playoffs, and we want to go over the depth charts a little bit now that there's 18 new players on the roster between undrafted free agents in the draft. We'll see where some of those guys fit in and where they can improve. We talk about that kind of all the time because, well, we like talking about that kind of stuff. We also like having the conversation with y'all. That's one of the reasons we go live every Monday and Wednesday, possibly Fridays. And want to say hello to some folks who came in before we even got started, like Dave Glassman. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick and the Falcons faithful. That's all of y'all. And Victor, he says, good morning, guys. I think there's little doubt that Atlanta is a playoff caliber team. However, the movements in this offseason make me think our ceiling is the divisional round in the next 2 years. And I think that's one of the kind of shocking things, Nick, about the draft itself was almost the Falcons kind of admitting to that to a certain extent. It's like, listen, we're going to be better, but we're not quite there yet. And we want to make sure that our window of being good doesn't shut completely when our good quarterback moves on because he is 36 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the very few things that makes sense. I think I sent you the interview from Ari, who works for the 33rd team, talking about how Raheem Morris, when he interviewed for the position before Arthur Smith got the gig in Atlanta, saying, like, listen, the only way this ship isn't going to go down is if we have a succession plan in place for Matt Ryan. And instead they went with Arthur Smith, who's like, look what I got from Ryan Tannehill. We don't need to, really invest that high. We can figure it out as we go. And crash and burned. Now, obviously, if you draft Desmond Ridder and he hits, or you come away with a quarterback instead of Kyle Pitts, obviously none of them besides Trevor Lawrence hit. That's a different story. But you kind of set yourself up here for that plan. Doesn't mean it's going to work out, but at least it frames the perspective some.
Yeah, the succession plan kind of hit the accelerator button when Arthur Blank then got involved with Deshaun Watson. You weren't expecting to necessarily need one, but I think it was coming anyway based on Matt Ryan's overall play. And then, if you had taken Justin Fields, would that have been the answer? Right now, the answer to that looks probably no. And then the next year, the quarterback class was dreadful. So you're talking about Kenny Pickett or Desmond Ridder. Those were the first two quarterbacks taken, unless you get completely lucky, and get Mr. Irrelevant. Then the year after that, Will Levis was the guy, and that would have been available for the Falcons. And he goes like 32nd or 33rd. Do you take him with number 8? So yeah, if you got an older quarterback, get one while you can. It's just the idea of getting a successor to Matt Ryan is one thing. Signing a guy and then immediately drafting a successor is a little different. That's not quite the Packers way, so to speak. Want to say hello to some folks also coming with some support. Look at Coach coming in with the super chat before we even get rolling. Thank you, Coach. Says morning studs. He's got the coffee emoji. We'll drink to that. Hope you all had a great weekend. Have a great show. Did have a good weekend. Lots of baseball. Some very interesting calls. I actually put one on a YouTube channel and an Instagram account that I ran. Little looper to short, bases loaded, nobody out, and the shortstop chose chaos. He let the ball bounce in front of him, and everybody lost their minds. And they ended up with a triple play out of it.
Wow.
If you're interested, hit me up, and I can on Twitter or something. I can show you the link on that. I put it on PrepFlix on YouTube. It was pretty crazy. I'm like, that's pretty obviously an infield fly to me, but fun weekend. Was glad the rain stayed away from us. Michael Ronquillo making it rain. He has changed his screenshot thumbnail. That's what I always figure out. Screw that up trying to say when we see these. So love it, Michael. Appreciate it. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast with the huge support that he has wanted to do. One of the benefactors of the Falcons podcast, Michael Ronquillo. And Edward Brown, he's on topic today. Buy or sell? He says sell. Even with Cousins running the offense, I think the defense takes a step back, being the schedule will be tougher and you're playing more top-tier quarterbacks. So, Nick, I do think the schedule is going to be a little bit tougher, but I do think this is still should be a playoff team. I think if the Falcons aren't in the playoffs at the end of the year, you consider it disappointing.
I mean, just the state of the NFC South, even if it was a tougher schedule outside of your divisional opponents, Atlanta, to me, is the most talented team in this conference. I think you have the best quarterback, definitely the best quarterback room, but the best starting quarterback in the class. You probably have the best weapons of any of the teams in the division. You probably have the best offensive line of any of the teams in the division. You have a lot of questions about the defense still, but you do have Raheem Morris, Lake. The defensive line, in theory, is too deep. I don't know if there's any Batmans in there, but you got a lot of solid contributors, and we'll see about the back seven. But even with a tougher schedule this season, I would imagine Atlanta being the favorite. I mean, I expect major regression from Baker Mayfield this season. I don't really, Dennis Allen and whatever's going on with Derek Carr there, I don't think that's a really great foundation. They do have the defense still, but I don't think they're a really solid team. And the Panthers, I mean, gosh, is there any team they've taken the stick from the Commanders as the most incoherent tire fire of any team in the NFL in the last 2-3 seasons. So even if the conference or the schedule outside of the division is tough, Atlanta should still be in a good spot, in theory.
You're in a good spot. Yeah, I'm buying on this. Again, we'll go through some of the positional groups and stuff as we go along over the course of the next hour or so. Because Victor says, Victor's looking at this. And he's like, listen, you're not really in it to win it. So let's just build for 2 years down the road. And he says, on the topic, I like your opinion. In 2025, we can cut Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, Caleb McGarry, and Matthews post 1-6 and save about $57 million on cap space. Do you see all of these movements happening together? Victor, no. In 2025. Okay, so after this year. Do you see all of these movements happening together? Oh, that's a lot of possibilities there. And opening up $60 million depends on where Grady Jarrett is.
Mm-hmm.
I would see some restructures involved on a few of these guys. I think McGarry is the most likely to need to step up. As far as performance related, I think he's the one that is the least likely to be a Falcon in 2025. Now, I'm not saying he can't be. I'm just saying in a pass offense, he scares the bejesus out of us. I think someone in the chat called him McScary, and we got a laugh out of that. So McGarry could be the one that he is with his contract. He could be the one that's just flat out gone. The other guys would be restructures extension candidates, depending on how Grady Jarrett plays. Now, if Grady Jarrett's out there and he looks bad and you just drafted 3 defensive tackles, you understand that this game comes for everybody. Father Time's undefeated. But I would see new contracts that lowers the cap hit on these guys in 2025 before flat out cuts, Victor.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's probably pretty tough to expect to replace both offensive tackles in one offseason. I think that, especially with an older quarterback or a young quarterback who has injury issues, replacing both tackles would be concerning. It's not something I would recommend, but we will see what the tape looks like this season. I mean, there's a possibility even. I know Bergeron's expected to play guard, but let's say McGarry struggles. Maybe they kick Bergeron out, and then you already have a solution out there at one of the tackle spots. We'll see a lot of potential options there, but on the surface, I think Matthews is the one I'm like, yeah, maybe wait and see. That's one reason I was maybe a little bit more about the contingency plan there this season, but I would be cautious of replacing 2 tackles in one offseason, given how hard it is to find able-bodied tackles on the market, draft or free agency.
Good question here from Chris F. Good to see you, Chris. He says, hello, ATL, from an overseas fan. Let us know where you're from. Hope to see that. You know, we like to travel. We like our overseas sports as well. So, you know, some brotherhood there, some partnership. Even if you're like a different team, I still like having international football fans around. They're fun.
Yeah.
But he says, when will the preseason schedule be released? I'll be visiting Atlanta August 3rd through 10th and can't wait to go to a game. I just read something. There's nothing official yet, but at least it was released 3 days ago that nothing was official yet, but it could be as soon as this week, Thursday, May 9th, if it goes to past schedules. Could get a schedule this week, and that would include the preseason. They don't usually move those around. Those kind of get a little scary, Chris, but if you're here for a whole week, you should be okay. I mean, if you're overseas, you know about flexing fixtures a couple days based on, oh, you're in the FA Cup. We're going to cancel this one. Damn it. I'm flying over. What are you talking about? So if you're there for the whole week, they don't skip weeks. It'll just be moved around. You might get a Friday night or something like that, which would be kind of fun, but could be Thursday. We'll have something to talk about on Friday if we do get the schedule release. Good to see you, John. Good to see you too. He says, good morning, Scott, Nick, and Falcons family. I'll buy because offense can't be worse than it was last year. I may have read that, but it's worth saying again. I was actually surprised. I think it was Ryan Adonis or someone had said, you know, all we need is a quarterback that can throw 3,000 yards. And I was actually a little surprised to see that there were like 10 teams that had worse passing yardage, overall yardage than the Atlanta Falcons. And when you think about it, it's like, all right, Nick, they had times where they moved the ball okay. But, you know, speaking of soccer, they were like box-to-box midfielders. They could get through the 20s okay. But inside their own red zone, turnovers. Inside the opponent's red zone, turnovers. So it was a bend them but break offense. So they actually put up okay yards. I mean, they were still bottom third, but it wasn't the worst passing offense by numbers. But I agree with you. I expect it to be considerably better. They actually regressed in scoring from 22 to 23, which was unfathomable. And it's the reason Arthur Smith was fired.
I will say part of that is league-wide trends, to be completely fair. The scoring was down like 25-year level lows. Explosive plays were down. Red zone percentage was down across the league. Some of that was because we had an unprecedented number of quarterbacks play, injuries, and youth at the position. But we've had a little bit of a defensive renaissance over the last 2-3 seasons where it's been trending back towards defense. We'll see if there's a little bit of a switch back to the offense. Maybe they'll just keep changing the rules to help the offense anytime defense starts to get a little bit of edge again. But even though Atlanta did regress last season, on the whole, I think it wasn't as stark as the league-wide trends.
That said, they went from 15th to 26th in scoring, which is a relative number.
Yeah.
So it's not, okay, well, they went from 21 points to 19 points. Well, league scoring was down 3 points across the entire league, so they didn't actually go down as much as everybody else. Relatively to the rest of the league, they went from 15th to 26th. That's bad. That's why you have a new coach. That's why Arthur Smith was fired. Brandon Yowler, look at Brandon coming in. That feels like a newer name. Appreciate you coming in. There's a super sticker here. I'm keep an eye out to see sometimes when people are new, which you might be. Apology, I don't remember seeing your name in here yet. I'll remember it now. Here it is. Sometimes he comes in twice. Sometimes it doesn't get attached with the question. So you figured it out. Thanks for the double super chat this morning, Brandon. He says, good morning, fellas. First time getting to watch live. Okay, there we go. Been listening from the beginning, and I love the coffee emojis. Just a reminder I put it in the description of the chat. If you go to lioncoffee.com, you can still use through this month, you can still get 20% off your orders. So through the end of May, anything except on their whole site, anything except the 100% Kona or the cases. So we're still partners with Lion Coffee to a certain extent. I still want to make sure that you are getting the benefit of our April draft coverage partnership with Lion Coffee. And I think we'll be back with them. I have a pretty good feeling. So that they'll be back with the show. And frankly, we're going to keep drinking Lion Coffee regardless. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And good morning to you. We also got Archangel coming in, says, good morning. How you doing, Ark? Roderick Cook, always one of my favorites to see you from across the pond. Says, hi, Scott, Nick, and everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you're at. And George Patterson also coming in saying, good morning, all Falcons fan. Hope the Falcons bring on a cab and another safety. And
I think that's probably cornerback on that
corner.
One.
Yep, CB. His team's not complete yet to win the South. To be fair, I don't know if you have to be complete to win the South on paper this season. Hopefully it's something that the massive jump up in quarterback play helps alleviate some of the areas where you are deficient. Now, that probably does put a ceiling on this Falcons team, but as far as competing to win the South, you got to be there right now. I haven't looked at what the win total projections are for the Saints and the Buccaneers, but I can't imagine they are above the Falcons, and if they are, it's got to be at one game at the most.
So Bleacher Report's the one that did it, and they had some good comments in here, and they put in the odds from DraftKings at -300. So what that means is if you bet on the Falcons to make the playoffs, you'd have to put down $300 to win 100. So it's basically 3-1 odds that the Falcons will make the playoffs. 3-1. That's pretty salty. That's pretty good that they will. And the argument against, and this is over on Bleacher Report Falcons, the argument against was, hey, Kirk Cousins was coming off an injury, and if he's not right, but then you've got a pretty good hedge, though. I mean, I've said it before. I think Michael Penix, if he starts week 1 and plays 17 games, I still think this is a playoff team, even with a rookie quarterback. Now, would he be better than a healthy Kirk Cousins? Probably not. Is he good enough to take this team to the playoffs over the course of 17 games? I think so. Doesn't make me right, but I think he would be over the course of 17 games where 10-7 probably wins you the division. And then he says, why we're buying. That's what they decided is, and it was all about the offense. His Cousins is apparently on track, and he was performing damn well before going down last season. He should have plenty left and will be surrounded by Bijan, Kyle Pitts, Drake London in that offense. In the NFC South, that should be more than enough. So, yeah, I'm still buying. You know, as with all the hemping and hollering and stuff about the decision making, I get fired up. I'm passionate when it comes to decision making and all that type of stuff. I love the team building. I get into it. I still think this team is definitely better, and I still think this is a playoff team. So yeah, that's where I am on that, Nick.
Yeah, and just again, wanted to validate what I said, since you brought the numbers on the actual relative slide of the Falcons numbers this year compared to the league-wide trends going down. FanDuel, I think, is what we'll go with here because BetMGM has a few different numbers here, but Falcons under win total right now is 9.5 wins, which, not crazy, but that's, it's a solid number. And then the Bucks and the Saints are at 7.5 each, and the Panthers are at 5.5 or 4.5, wherever you're at. So a full 2 games is what Vegas is saying the Falcons are better relative to their NFC South rivals. So we'll see. Again, games are not played on paper. There's a lot of moving pieces, especially with the Falcons' new coaching staff, new system, 2 new quarterbacks, new defensive system as well. So I think there's a little bit of volatility there on that market, but Vegas is saying that 2 wins better is I would say a significant jump between the teams.
That's 20 games in baseball. I mean, you think about the relativity again. We talk about we're not going to get into the math, but 2 wins is a lot. That's probably one of the bigger ones, I would imagine, except maybe AFC West might be bigger than that one, just because you don't know what the hell's going on out west with everybody else. And then you've got the Chiefs there.
Yeah, I will say also the 2 games there, from 9.5 to 7.5 is as big of a difference in terms of over-under on wins as the Falcons are from the top over-unders in the entire NFL. So 11.5 for the Ravens, 49ers, and Chiefs. So that's just kind of put into perspective how that gap is viewed. You're as far from the elites as the Saints and Bucks are viewed from the Falcons.
Yeah, it's buy. You're buying right now. And again, if you're not in the playoffs, there's going to be some big questions asked. Now, Raheem Morris will be safe. He's not going to get fired after 1 year unless something completely weird happens. It's only happened like one time. But Leaf says, "Good morning, boys. I'm so ready for this season. I truly feel like this team could get to the NFC title game. Penix was a good pick, and this team is ready for the next 5 years for Super Bowl runs. It would be, again, cap management, youth, hitting on your draft picks. Again, a lot of the talk about Michael Penix is, okay, they love him, therefore you take him, therefore he hits. Well, you never know with a quarterback, a first-round quarterback. There's a 50-50 chance he won't be any good. That's just the way it is. And then, but again, come 2026, I'll be glad he's on the roster for sure. My number one choice overall, Nick, during this quarterback search was always to get one of these rookies in this class. This is a deep quarterback class. You're drafting 8 rookie, and I like the idea of a cheaper hedge like Justin Fields. Wouldn't that be interesting? See if he plays lights out. Let him start for a year. Russell Wilson. They both ended up in Pittsburgh. Something like that. We'll see. So getting a rookie was always on the cards. It just seemed, again, we've hashed on this about why it didn't make as much sense when you went $100 million into Kirk Cousins. Anthony Evans, he says, "Good morning, guys. Good morning to you." Jason B is here. Bryce Gillespie as well. Make you fumble. He's talking about Desmond Ridder. He didn't last long. Yeah, it was. He needed a fresh start too. I'm glad he'll get a chance to back up, and there's a decent chance he'll get to play. Is Kyler Murray, has he played 17 games, full seasons in any of the last 3 or 4? There's probably a decent chance he gets to play, and I'm pretty happy that it was Rondale Moore. I get him confused. Mooney came from free agency. Rondale Moore came from the Cardinals. I just think undersized speedsters. The Falcons brought in 2, and I get confused who is who. Mooney was with the Bears. Correct, Nick?
Yes, he was with the Bears for a while. 4th-round pick, I believe. Paid him good money for somebody who's had some injury issues, but he's, before some of the injury stuff, was a pretty dynamic player. So we'll see what happens. I mean, him and Rondale Moore on this team should be a lot of fun, adding some variety to totally different body type skill sets compared to Pitts, London, and Robinson. We got Buffalo Live coming in, says, "Love your channel, Scott." We also says, from a Bills fan, figured that out with the
I've got a lot of Bills fans on the channel. I did a spot with Buffalo's Fanatics. I think it was during the Spencer Brown time when I had about 800 guys on the channel, 800 subscribers on the channel. And after doing that spot with Buffalo Fanatics, I picked up like 100 Bills fans. They really came through, and big love to Bills Mafia. So thanks. Appreciate you being here. Try and keep content. It's been really heavy Falcons lately, but I try and get some other stuff up there for y'all as well. And I know the Senior Bowl stuff goes that direction too. So Nando is here. Good day. Keith, he says, "Missed y'all on Friday. Welcome back." Keith and Chris Walker, I know you're here. I kind of said, I feel like we've hit on quarterbacks enough, and I don't have anything else I want to talk about on Friday, so I'm taking the day off. We're back. We're back here on Friday after almost a full week. So appreciate you, Keith. And Harry was he was trying to pull a Nick here. He says, "I'm going to watch y'all on YouTube." But the toddler got mad. I took his videos off. Yeah, the 60-inch TV is for the kids, and your iPad is for you. That's kind of how it works until they get older and they go off into their own little corners with their iPads. Then you have the whole TV to yourself. So I did actually lose a whole room to a gaming station, though. My man cave has been a teenager cave for the last 3 years, but time goes so fast, I'll be kicking him out in 3 years anyway. So it goes fast, Nick. It does. Roy Osborne says, "Good morning, all. Nick and Scott and people attending. Have a great show." Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Greg Custom Kicks is coming in with a super. Appreciate you being here. He says, "Good morning, guys. A little off topic." That's okay. We don't mind off topic if you don't. When you get a moment, could both of you check out this Disabled Army veterans work at this handle? Give me a like on all platforms. Absolutely. We can go over there and check it out and hit the stuff that he's doing. I know we've got some other folks in here who the rap reviews, B-side rap reviews is one of our part of our community. Greg Custom Kicks. So y'all check them out, see what you like, and appreciate you, Greg, and hope you're doing okay.
Yeah, for sure. I tried to look it up on Twitter. I did not see GQB Custom.
You have to go to the YouTube on the YouTube side. You can go to view profile. So,
okay, all right. Well, try to find you on Twitter. That's mainly where, unfortunately, probably not the best social media platform, but it's fun most of the time. But we'll check you out for sure, Greg. Appreciate you, and also thank you for your service, first and foremost as well. Thank you.
And Leaf has another point in here I want to hit on. He says, "Who's to say Morris doesn't turn a corner, and a couple linemen into Pro Bowlers on the defense?" I'll tell you the other one to watch for, Nick, is Troy Anderson.
You took mine away. I saw we had a comment come in from Keith saying the training camp battle most looking forward to. For me, just looking over the roster and who's available there. Our lads has Nate Landman over Troy Anderson, which he came in and was solid last season, did a role, but second round pick, athlete, third year in the NFL. Troy Anderson's versus Landman is the one I am most interested in for the camp battles. But sorry to cut you off. It's just that's exactly looking at the roster. I'm like, that's where I want to see. That's the one that interests me.
Yeah, that was Keith. Let me see here. Let me get rid of the spammer and YouTube and Facebook. Apologies. And want to hit it was because it was Keith. He came in with some stars, and it was right here. Thank you for the stars over there on Facebook, Keith. He says the training camp competition I'm most looking forward to is the first thought for me would be that second wide receiver. That's what springs out to me is it Mooney? Is it more the speed? They just offer something completely different that can one of those guys get on the field a lot more than he who must not be remembered. Who was the guy they got from Van Jefferson? I've already blocked him from my brain. Who took a ton of snaps and just was terrible. I mean, sorry, but he offered nothing to this team. So can these guys these 4-3 receivers who do offer something very different to Kyle Pitts and Drake London, that's probably the one I'm most interested in. And then Keith and Falcons fans, after looking at that, it's not for me. I don't necessarily think of it as a battle with Caden Ellis, with Troy Anderson, with Nate Landman. I think of it as how do you get those guys on the field at the same time? I think of where do you if I don't have three edge rushers I love, if it's Lorenzo Carter, if it's Arnold Ebiketie, okay, can I get 6'4" and 240 pounds of 4'4" Troy Anderson on the field somewhere? Caden Ellis had 7 sacks in 11 games when he was signed as a free agent from the New Orleans Saints, but he had to come back into more of an inside role instead of a free role after the Anderson injury. I think we pretty much know where Nate Landman is going to be. There's your steady presence, get a job done in the middle. Now use Anderson and Caden Ellis as wild cards and let them roam all over the place and find holes where they can apply pressure. So I don't see that as a battle so much, Nick, as a challenge for Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake to find out how to get the best guys on the field. And I think Ellis and Anderson are two of those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do with all those guys. I mean, especially if you have, again, Scott, sorry to use the buzzwords that the NFL is using these days as coaches, but in the simulated pressure world, having big athletes that can blitz from the linebacker spot is a tremendous tool to have, especially if you have versatility at the edge rushing spot where you have guys who can drop into coverage like Ebiketie and Carter can as well. So those big athletes in third down and obvious pass downs can be a weapon in your arsenal to get after the quarterback while not having to necessarily blitz. So it's pretty fun to see what they can do there. Excited about that. And I mean, you're totally right. Wide receiver too. I mean, I know it's wide receiver too, but I'm curious to see how the target distribution is, how far down the targets list and just priority in the offense is wide receiver too. Like, how does the pecking order come between the target distribution between the big three as well? I'm really curious to see what that looks like, incorporating Moore and Mooney, who seem much more auxiliary kind of pieces. So because they play wide receiver, are you going to see enough targets for them where maybe they contend with Pitts at tight end, given, tight end historically not a high volume spot, or running back in the pass game? It's a weird combination of weapons that you see there from the Falcons, given what we see most teams do. Chris Walker coming in with the Facebook, the May the 4th be with you stamp over his profile picture. Star Wars guy, obviously there. Chris Walker says, good morning. McGarry and Dahlman need to learn how to pass protect worth a damn, especially McGarry, because he will be protecting Penix's blind side. Matthews is solid, and a restructure may happen. I can't believe Morris thinks Grant is better than he was initially thinking. We'll see what happens with Grant. The only thing I will say, coming back to protecting pass protection, is that was one of my big issues with Desmond Ridder, is that he had like no pocket presence. And once things kind of crumbled, he deteriorated and like got real frantic. Cousins, despite, being older, coming off the injury, he's pretty good with playing within the confines of the offensive line. I mean, we've kind of followed the Vikings offensive line from a distance, Scott, because of the Dalton Reisner stuff, but like their interior offensive line pass protection with Kirk Cousins there, not good. But he was still able to manipulate the pocket and get the ball out and do stuff pre-snap where he protected himself. And that was one of the big selling points with Michael Penix as well. His pressure to sack rate was unbelievable. Not really a great athlete on the field. I know he ran a 4.52, I believe what it was, but
isn't that crazy? He doesn't move
match
around
it.
a whole lot, despite the fact that he's got wide receiver speed.
Yeah, weird. 4.52.
He's a quarterback. He wants to throw the ball.
You still think it would manifest itself more than it did on tape? Just as an athlete, he looked pretty stiff to me a lot of times, but that's a different conversation. Really good pressure to sack rate, knew how to protect himself and get rid of the football. So I think obviously pass protection's big for the offensive line, but I think you have two quarterbacks who really can help alleviate some of the issues in pass protection. I think the pass protection stuff, you got to have like a baseline, but a lot of that, I think, going from like average to great is more so on the quarterback. What you can't really go from average to great on is the run blocking. I think that's something either you have the guys or not, where quarterback helps a little bit with the pass pro stuff.
That said, McGarry's still a little scary in a pass offense. You got to at least get a body on somebody. Yep. And he had trouble at times just slowing guys down. It was it the first? Was it Brian Burns? Was it the first week? I feel like it wasn't Burns. It was the other edge. But they had to change the game plan in the first quarter, and Arthur Smith came out and said we couldn't let that guy wreck the game. I think it was probably Burns. Couldn't let this guy wreck the game because he was wrecking the game.
Was it Gross Matos?
No, it was probably Brian Burns. Brian Burns. Breon, good to see you this morning over on Facebook. He says, good morning, guys. Our defense will still be somewhat elite. Is that like kind of good? Is that like okay? As long as Bates is healthy, I think what you'll see are the big plays and then, some points and the volatility, which we saw last year. You'd see times where you go against Cincinnati and they just run it up and down, or you're getting big plays and stopping drives because Bates. So the volatility, I think, will be there with Bates, where you'll have the elite plays and then the scores and everything there. But he says we really need another safety as opposed to a cornerback, in my opinion. Any news on Simmons? I haven't seen anything new on Simmons since the draft, Nick.
Haven't heard anything on Simmons ever since. It sounded like Steelers were a favorite, but who knows how that plays out. I will be curious to see how the defensive shift changes things. Last season, the advanced stats loved the Falcons in run defense. They were the number one run defense in the entire NFL in rush EPA per play, but bottom 12 in pass defense, and the pass defense has a large weight on the overall impact. They finished 12th overall in EPA per play last season. So I don't know if I would say they were elite last year.
Somewhat elite.
Middle of the pack, average. You could argue second quartile, but yeah, they were fine last year. To me, again, do you have game wreckers, winners up front? People who like opposing teams. If you sit down, the week before, okay, we're playing the Falcons. The offensive side, the opposing offensive side looks at the team as like, okay, if we don't stop player X, we're screwed.
Right.
We have to. Everything we do has to revolve around stopping player X. I don't think the Falcons have that guy. I think Grady Jarrett is very good, but I don't think he's like, I'm talking like first team All-Pro consideration, Hall of Fame, straw that stirs the drink kind of guy. He's very, very good. He's going to be a Falcons Ring of Famer. Love Grady Jarrett dating back to his Clemson days. But I'm talking like, your Myles Garrett's of the world, your Micah Parsons of the world, your Chris Joneses of the world, TJ Watts, Max Crosby.
There's not too many inside guys that are like that. And Grady Jarrett's as good as they come. It's just, I'll never forget, and I bookmarked it. He's getting triple teamed. And he says, damn, y'all don't have anybody else to block? No, we don't.
That might have been.
We don't. If Grady Jarrett was on a better defense through the course of his career, there would be different discussions around Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett is phenomenal. He really is. He suffers from the 8 losing the Falcons syndrome that we see a little bit with Chris Lindstrom right now. It's like, oh, here come the grades at guards. Chris Lindstrom's 8th. You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. And there's guys there. Oh, the Dallas Cowboys. Zach Martin's pretty good, but Quentin Nelson's still being ahead of him. And they're being dragged down. The rising tide lifts all boats. Yeah, well, they're being dragged down by the perception of the Falcons as a whole, which isn't fair to them. I understand, you see some of the circling of the wagons of Falcons fans about, with all the negativity around the draft. The Falcons fans have circled the wagons and they're protecting their team and they're responding negatively. Who cares what they think? What do they know? This was a great pick. All those kind of things. That's fine. But having guys like Chris Lindstrom and Grady Jarrett get dragged down because the Falcons have been poor. My question is what have the Falcons really done to get the benefit of the doubt when they do something odd? They haven't. It's like, well, they're always down on the Falcons. Well, there's reason for that. There's reason why people have been down on the Falcons. They haven't been very good for a while, for a long time.
I will say,
seeing special players get pulled down by that. That pisses me off. Grady Jarrett's one of those guys. Grady Jarrett is a special player, and he will be a Falcons legend. Even if he's only loved by Falcons fans, that will be good enough for him. But he's really good. Jacob
really
Custer says Bronco fan dropping in to say hi. We appreciate it. We love. I love the crosstalk. I love talking different teams and all those kind of things. Obviously, I mentioned the depth chart on this, and again, I think one of the key battles for the depth chart is going to be how do you use Troy Anderson and Caden Ellis? That's going to be key for me. Can you get those two guys on the field at the same time? I think the other thing I want to see is Taquan Graham on the defensive line. How is he going with Ruka Rohoro in there right now? That's going to be a battle. Taquan's got some. They'll both play, but they're definitely going to compete, and they should push each other to make each other better, Nick.
I'm looking at the Falcons depth chart on the defensive line like, hey, who's not making it? Because I might want to swoop. Looking at our lads, you're 3 deep. You got Taquan Graham listed on your 3rd string there. 6th round pick, Zion Logue you took this season. You have Contavious Street still, Ruka Rohoro, of course. Eddie Goldman.
Eddie Goldman. London. Anybody want to put any money on Eddie Goldman playing this year? I don't. Speaking of buy or sell, the guy's retired twice already. I just believe it when I see it. When I see him out there,
I know I really like LaCale London's profile as well. He stood out last season in limited snaps as you talk about like depth piece as well. So interesting. And we got QB Custom Kicks coming in. Say he's on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube under that handle. So I'll find you on Instagram. I don't really do the TikTok so much. The algorithm scares the hell out of me. I'm already addicted to Twitter. I need something that's like scanning my brain as much, but we'll definitely look you up there, buddy.
Keith and Ellen Johnson, he's coming in with some stars over on Facebook as well. Let's see what he has to say. I might have to read it. It gets harder to find in here. Oh, he says his cousin's on schedule for the first game. That's the talk right now. He's out throwing, and he's planting that back foot and releasing the ball. So that's good. He's at Falcons minicamp, OTAs, doing all that stuff. We are all of May, all of June, all of July, all of August. We're 4 months away from kickoff. I think you're in pretty good shape. I really do. And I think the veterans, again, one of the reasons you make this move is you owe it to some of your veterans to try and put your best foot forward. And I think the veterans are going to be excited to play with Kirk Cousins, and the younger veterans, because Kyle Pitts is in his 4th year. Drake London's in his 3rd year, are going to be excited to say, okay, I can see me staying here for a while now. And that's part of the team building too. The man management that I talk about more in baseball than in football, but it matters, Nick.
Yeah, it absolutely does matter, of course. Something like, I know we talk a lot of quarterback stuff here. We'll probably have to spend an episode kind of going over some of the comments and just reading the room here. But you talk about what training camp battle you're most interested in. I am most interested in the locker room dynamics with Kirk Cousins trying to establish himself as a new player. And then you have the young, franchise savior quarterback coming in too. Just how does that fall in line with all these different players and the new leadership dynamics? It's not just, not correlating an offseason move of bringing the quarterback in, but also the move with drafting the quarterback. But Kirk Cousins doesn't know these guys, right? He doesn't have that established leadership and rapport. Now you're bringing in 2 people at once. I'm just wondering how the locker room responds. Luckily, it does seem like Penix is like a very good guy, and I think he's not going to come in and cause problems. But let's say Cousins isn't out there throwing right away, and then you see Penix, who from the Senior Bowl to the Combine to his pro day, the arm is special, Scott. Like the velocity he generates is special. Might turn some heads and create some weird dynamics in that Falcons locker room, let alone, the fan base as well. But God, we're just waiting to see on that one. That's going to be wild. And we got the clip pulled up here with the old school.
Yeah. Trey says, or Michael says, Trey from the Bengals, Trey Hendrickson would allow Grady to grow to another level. And right now, I'm just it's almost like a Q rating for me. Can Grady Jarrett get the league-wide respect he deserves? Because he's not going to get better, unfortunately. Can he be more productive? Yes, because he could get some help. And I think he's got the help. He's got David Onyemata. He's got Taquan Graham. He's got Zach Harrison. He's got Rojo. He's got help to keep Grady fresh. But coming off an injury in his 30s, he's not going to be better than he was when he was 28. As far as the potential that was there. Yeah. And we missed that window for him, unfortunately. He's still really, really good. But yeah, this is I'll never forget this. This was 2021, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. We were covering the team together.
Oh, I just love that clip because the answer, Grady, was no. No, we don't. As long as we neutralize Grady Jarrett, we'll be all right. And if we need 3 guys to do it, we'll use 3 guys. So I have that one bookmarked. I've kept that one through the years. So Leon Mapstone, he says, good morning. He says, I'm late. That's all right. We don't mind. We're glad you're here. And Anthony Evans, yes. What about Rook? You think he will help spell Grady Jarrett to keep him fresh? Yes, I do. I think your rotation on your interior line right now on paper is as deep as any that isn't the Philadelphia Eagles. And they may have even lost some guys too. I just haven't paid attention as much with all the focus on the Falcons and the draft. That's, yes, this interior line goes 6-8 deep now. And we talked about it last week, Anthony, and Falcons fans. Does it make sense to go a 4-man front, more of a 4-man front? Taquan, Zach, all these guys are 280 plus. Rook, Brandon Dorless, Onyemata. There's 5. I'm missing somebody. I don't know if I said Grady twice or not. But you go 8 across now, deep. Why not go a 4-man front? Then you can get Caden Ellis and Troy Anderson on the field at the same time and use that speed. Rotate in Lorenzo Carter and Arlo Edipichetti during pass rush situations. There's some pieces there. When you're strong up front, it gives you options. So, again, I don't know how much any of the draft picks are going to have a big impact as far as being starters week to week. But the depth on the defensive line will absolutely help this team without a doubt. Are you going to have somebody in the running for of the year player as rookies, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year? No, they won't get the opportunities to do that. Can they help the team? Yeah, they can.
I mean, knock on wood, I guess there's a chance that things could play out
Michael
where
Penix, if he ends up playing 16 games, will have a chance.
yeah.
There's always the injury factor. I don't want to talk about the injury factor.
It's just the situation is set up well, and with how many starts he's already had, that if something did happen, that might be a worth scratch ticket lottery buy there, Scott, because it's not the plan, but crap happens, right? I think he'd be pretty good
because
odds.
Again, take Kirk Cousins out of the equation. Who has a better quarterback situation of the 6 rookies than Michael Penix?
You might argue McCarthy because Kevin O'Connell is like really established. I mean, we saw what he did with Dobbs last season. Unbelievable. And then you have the best pass catcher in all of football. So you might argue McCarthy. After that, I would take Penix and then Caleb Williams. But that's just me.
I think it's close, but it's arguable. Of the 6 first-round quarterbacks, Michael Penix might have the best situation to come in and play right away.
Yep.
So could he win? Yes, but it's going to take an injury to Kirk Cousins, and we don't want that. We want Kirk Cousins to go out and be awesome and have a tough decision to be made in 2026 where, all right, well, hell, he's got $55 million on his contract, or we could play the rookie that we drafted, but he just threw for 40 touchdowns against 5 interceptions. We can't get rid of that guy. Maybe you can trade him. Maybe you could trade that guy for a pick or something like that. Robot of Doom, and then we're just about ready to get out of here. He says, Scott, what's your honest power rankings of the NFC teams or top 7? 49ers still there. 49ers Eagles are still there for me. Tampa Bay came on really strong last year. The Eagles just collapsed last year. Will they bounce back?
Lions.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot.
Lions.
Yeah, I'd have to look at them.
Yeah.
Detroit and San Francisco 1 and 2 for me, and then Philly. Where are they? I don't know. Those are the top 3 for me, but Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I think the 49ers had the best odds. Lions there at 10.5. We don't Cowboys also at 10.5, but some of the Vegas lines are based on where the money's coming in. But Detroit, I mean, Cowboys probably have the best quarterback in the NFC on paper right now, in my opinion. So they're one. The dark horse here for me, Scott, is the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love was unbelievable the second half of the season last year. He had one of the best playoff games ever. Now, granted, 1 game sample size against a Dan Quinn Dan Quinn defense that looked like it didn't want to tackle, and also was looking at other opportunities. But right now, I was out of the top teams, the one that if I was going to sprinkle anything on, just kind of a buy low team, I think the Packers at 9.5 are a decent value because they got first round pick after first round pick after first round pick on the defensive front. Really young weapons coming into their own. A good system, and Jordan Love's second year starting with, let's be real, a pretty phenomenal superpower arm as well.
And one of the sleepers in there is probably the Rams also. The Rams finished the season pretty well, depending on what they decide to do. Watch out for the Rams. But again, it's cyclical, and the bad teams should be getting better, assuming that, they have a clue of what they're doing. That's always a big assumption. Mitch, good to see you. He says, what's up, fellas? Rise up. LZ21, he says Lions will go all the way under the guidance of 2 former Sean Payton assistants. And, I think we can all root for the Lions when they're not playing our team until they win it all. Then step aside. Then you're not the lovable underdogs anymore. And hopefully you won't act like Cubs fans did when they got there and did something, because they were just unbelievably obnoxious about it. It's like,
I hate the Cubs.
How about, I'm not saying act like you've been there before, but how about showing some respect to the fact that you've been a joke of the league for the last 50 years and be a little more gracious about it. That was awful. I don't see that with Lions fans coming again with the channels that we run, come into contact with a lot of fans because I've got several that are all sports, and I do a lot of Detroit Lions stuff, and the Lions fans have been awesome. So, but Lions, they're going to be tough. I don't know. The Saints, you keep an eye on the Saints when you're in Atlanta, but I feel like Dennis Allen's shopping as a defensive coordinator next year. This will be his last year.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yep. Probably right. We'll see what happens with Dennis Allen and the Saints out there. But an interesting team next season, no doubt.
All right. I think we're just about to get out of here. Nick and I are going to hop over to youtube.com/Mile High Huddle and talk a little Broncos. They're still talking all quarterbacks too right now. So I didn't see what Nick titled it. Hopefully it's not just quarterback. We'll get into some other things, but I want to say thanks to our super chat superstars, including Jacob, who came in, Broncos fan. Thank you for the support for the channel. Greg, check out Greg Custom Kicks. Check out his channel on all your social media platforms too. Brandon breaking the ice as well, coming in. Edward Brown, one of the OGs. Coach, one of the OGs. And, of course, Hot Pink, Red Hot, Sunrise and Sunset, Michael Ranquillo, one of the benefactors of the Falcons podcast. Again, make sure you take advantage of your promo code from the Falcons podcast at lioncoffee.com, lioncoffee.com, and use your promo. It's in the description of the show, wherever you're listening or watching, of Go Falcons 20% off through May. So get your 20% off on Lion Coffee. Nick, any final words?
Feel pretty good about the Falcons right now, obviously. I don't know. Typically, maybe it's the fact that I'm not jaded having covered this team for super duper long or been a fan in the area, but excited to cover what this team can do this season. Hopefully one of us can finally be covering a playoff team for the first time since we've been doing this. Obviously the Broncos in a kind of a purgatory themselves here, but should be a fun season, ready for some real football. And, despite it being the off season, we're still here grinding just like you guys are. I mean, the super chat support's coming in today. God bless you. Of course, we got Coach coming in, Michael Ranquillo, Edward Brown, Brandon Yaller twice, GQB Custom Kicks as well. Just followed you on Instagram. Jacob Custer. You guys are great. Appreciate you so much. And John Higgins also say, good morning, guys. Heart the show as always. Go Falcons and rise up. Rise up you, John. Hopefully you're doing well. Good morning.
Yep. Appreciate y'all being here. We will be back on Wednesday to talk some more Falcons. Until then, hit that like, subscribe, share with a friend. Always love hearing the recommendations. And thanks for coming in and saying, hey, we'll be in the comments after the fact. We will be back on Wednesday. Hope y'all have a great rest of the week. Looks to be a gorgeous day in Atlanta. Thanks for being here, y'all.
Peace.